Black Saturday.
Saturday, 7th of February 2009. Thousands of people are exposed to unimaginable horror as the deadliest bushfires in Australia's recorded history rage through the state of Victoria. The firestorm destroys entire country towns, incinerates over 2,000 houses, and takes the lives of 173 people. 1 year later, on the first anniversary of the Black Saturday bushfires, survivors shared their memories of that terrifying day.
It was just an endless procession of pager messages, pleading, begging us to help, and we could do nothing.
Peter was only perhaps 400 metres from where I got to safety.
When there was no obvious signs of them, I was hoping that they got away, that they weren't there.
I was actually thinking, like, my kids, what will it be like for them growing up?
I was sure Jason would die, but I had to keep going to save my own life and save the life of my kids.
Now, on the 10th anniversary of Black Saturday, survivors reflect on a decade-long journey of recovery, fighting their way back to a new life in the aftermath.
I'm one of the lucky ones. I love my children, but I feel bad that I've got my kids and other people lost theirs.
The process of dealing with the bushfires is not ended. There's a lot of people who haven't dealt with their issues yet.
It was a tragic thing and I hated it, but it hasn't stopped me living.
We understood that each other had been through this massive event.
The feeling of loving and to be loved again.
Romance blossomed.
The years after the fire were probably some of the best memories I've got in my life now.
Black Saturday was a day like no other. We'd had 10 years of drought. We'd had several days of 40-degree temperature. Relative humidity for the day was single figures. The bush was tinder dry and ready to burn. All it needed was a source of ignition. On that day, all we needed was a source of combustion. What we got was far bigger fire than we could ever have imagined. It took my town. 13 dwellings were left, or 13 buildings were left in the town. And my wife, Liz, and son Dalton both perished in that fire.
Fully charged, ready to head out.
My connection with the CFA goes back to Ash Wednesday. So it's 30-odd years I've been involved in the brigade. On that day, on the day of Black Saturday, I was the captain of the brigade.
The CFA fought a losing battle to protect Marysville, a thriving tourist destination, home to over 500 people. More than 90% of the town was destroyed. Every firefighter in the brigade lost their home, and Glenn would lose much more.
When we first came back to the house, all that was left was the chimney stack and the roof flat on the deck. And that's when I accepted that Liz and Dalton had been in there. Yeah, that they'd passed. Yeah.
The firestorm took Glenn's wife and son, leaving him homeless with 2 surviving children.
I had to stay strong for the kids. I knew the town had to be rebuilt. I felt I had to stay. I felt that it was where Liz and Dalton had left from. I was committed right from the start that we were going to rebuild and rebuild back on the same site.
This is the last of the 3 dogs that we had on Black Saturday. They all got burnt. The first time Jason lit up a bonfire after the fire, the dogs went crazy. They were terrified. And that was even hard for me to look at, seeing what it did to the dogs. I remember getting a phone call to say that Jason had been rescued from our property and was on the way to the Alfred Hospital, and their house was gone.
Down the side there.
Joshua couldn't look at Jason because his eyelids had melted together. It was just heartbreaking for me to see Joshua not being able to look at his own father because he was so badly injured.
I saw the fire come from that direction there. A lot of big pine trees and that went up instantly. It just roared. I crawled all the way down until I could feel the water, and I think I pulled my coat up a bit and just laid there. I thought, I don't think I'll make it. I'll probably die here. It was one of those things where it's just like, the quicker the better, I think.
Jason Lynn's family escaped in the car as he tried in vain to defend their home. Hours later, he was found semi-conscious in the dam. Like thousands of people across Victoria, the Lynns returned home to find everything had been destroyed.
Everything was black and sandy and ashy, and it was like looking at something on another planet.
I walked around the place and it was just dead quiet. No birds, anything. It's just devastation. There was nothing. My mum goes, "How do you feel?" And I said, "Well, there's nothing here anymore, but I still know that this is our home." You know, it was still our place, I could tell, even though everything was totally destroyed.
To be perfectly honest, I didn't want to come back. But Jason wanted to come back, so that's the only reason why we're still here.
I wasn't able to build back in Strathewen. I got back to my house after the fire, but it was just bricks and dust and ash. The day was very, very hot, and Peter spent a lot of time dampening down our house. Black balls of stuff all falling everywhere, and our paddock was on fire. Gas tanks blowing up, and there was flames and horses on the road. We were just trying to survive. Peter said to me, "You get in the car and go." My friend's dad came on his motorbike and he put his arms around me and he said, "Peter's gone." And I said, "Gone where?" That's my husband, Peter. We lost him in the fire. He was a gorgeous man, loved by all. He used to smile a lot. Yeah. Peter was a gentle, loving, caring person. I don't think we ever had an angry word. He would never, ever fight with me. He'd walk away. He used to say, we'll only say things to each other we don't mean in the heat of the moment.
Peter Avola was one of 22 people who lost their lives when the Black Saturday bushfires swept through the tiny community of Strathewen.
We weren't allowed in for some time. I got back to my house 2 weeks after the fire. We just stood there at first. The chimney had fallen down. It was just ash and china pieces and glass. Ruin.
Unable to face the prospect of rebuilding alone, Mary left Strathewen for the suburbs of Melbourne, taking all she could salvage of her old life.
This was my chandelier. I had a chandelier in the bedroom. Yeah, there's some of the glass. We had sieves, and we'd shovel into the sieves and look. And that was a lovely dress ring I had. So I got something out of it. There's a separation between my life before. It's like there's a pane of glass in front of me. I can see what happened. But, I mean, it was a tragic thing and I hated it. But it hasn't stopped me living.
The fires really made us, in the end, go, we would like to move back to New Zealand because it's such a stress. Because we're from New Zealand, we didn't have any experience of forest fire.
I was 9 months pregnant at the time of the fires.
There's young Otto, Emma, who is expected to produce at any day.
Jonathan Dempson and Emma Smetham left New Zealand and started a family in Victoria, renovating a cottage in the country town of Buxton.
Our decision had been that we would stay and fight.
Look at that, this huge great plume.
The fire had crested the ridge. That's when I said, bugger the house, let's go.
Red alert, we can actually see the fire from here. We're about to take off.
Just kept driving, trying to get north away from the fire.
We were mad to get in the car and drive.
John is just working out the way to go to Shepparton.
With a small child and grandparents in tow, Jonathan and Emma narrowly escaped with their lives. As the clock ticked over into Sunday, the whole family found safety in a single hotel room in Shepparton.
People in the hotel said, we've got a room.
One room. I lay down and I went, okay, you can come now. And my waters broke.
This is Casper, my little fire baby. He was the boy that was born the night of the fires.
Casper had made it safely into the world, but with bushfires still blazing across the state, the new parents soon came face to face with the devastating impact on their community.
One of Jonathan's piano students' father was being treated for burnt hands at the same hospital, and we had just had Casper, which was beautiful and exciting and happy for us. But he had lost his whole family. He'd lost his wife, he had lost his children. He's lost everything and we've gained a little new member. How do you come back from that as a human being? Just losing your whole family. We were a bit of a beacon for hope amongst the local community because people would come up to me with the baby all the time and it would kind of like be their happy moment. Oh, look at the baby. We were so lucky. We could have been burnt alive in the car is the actual reality of it. The actual reality of it. And so many people did lose their lives in that way.
The day after Black Saturday, the extent of the destruction became clear, and the death toll began its steady climb.
I never saw fire on Black Saturday. For me, that Sunday was the killer. I went out on our truck, got on the road and worked our way up to Kinglake. And I mean, that's when we started to see the people who hadn't made it.
When first responders reached the scene, CFA volunteer Cliff Overton helped guide them into the heart of the devastation.
The first victim of the fires I saw was just a glance as we drove past of a van that obviously had someone in it. We'd started in Arthurs Creek and then headed off into Strathewen and looked down on an oval and there was a person lying on the cricket pitch. There was someone dead there. And they'd been covered with a piece of cricket pitch. It was like someone had pulled up the synthetic and sort of draped it over them. And I remember that because I thought that's a little bit of dignity for someone there. They've been covered up. We went house to house. We had 2 police cars with us and they were the disaster victim identification people.
Hello? Police? Police? Hello?
Some people I saw looked perfectly fine, you know, but, you know, they weren't getting up. And then others, you know, when you see what fire can do, it just got worse and worse. There was a couple that had obviously tried to leave on foot and had only got so far and had both been killed by the fire, but were holding hands. You know, and there wasn't much left of them. And I just stood there and looked at that for a moment.
The horrors that faced Victoria's emergency services would reverberate for years to come, as first responders like Cliff battled with post-traumatic stress and depression.
I've got this slideshow tucked in the back of the head. And if I want to, I can pull it up and I can sit and scroll through every still image my brain captured of every person that I saw right there that day. Felt like I had the ghosts of everyone who died surrounding me, and I got to the point where I thought, well, there are ways of stopping the voices in my head, and one of them is to kill myself.
I have heart pangs when I come here. This is the spot that people found Peter after the fire. When we drove out the next morning, he was here on the oval, but I didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye to him. And that was even more a reason why our friends and neighbours and the cricket club wanted the pavilion named after him.
Hey, Mary.
Oh, hi, Cliff.
Mary came up to me and she said, my husband Peter died in the fires. He was on the Oval when they found him. And I realised exactly who she was talking about. She suddenly put a name to someone I'd seen. That was the first time that had happened. These people in my head were just the deceased. I didn't know who they were.
I still have that beautiful leaf you made me.
Go on. That was the moment I started to get better.
Yeah?
Seriously.
I got put on my first 2 weeks stress leave. I walked out, picked up this little brochure off the counter that said something about a memorial being built. People were going to make leaves for this metal tree. Got on an anvil for the first time, was shown how to make a leaf and made my first leaf, and I went, right, how many do we need?
That's the one you made me.
Mary said, can you make a leaf with Peter's name on it?
Put yourself down as my first therapist.
Yeah.
It's quite cathartic, belting the crap out of a piece of hot metal as hard as you can as an anger release. It was only when I really made contact with the community we were doing this for that I realised how powerful this project was and the healing and therapy that it was offering. I had sessions with psychologists who treated return service people from theatres of war who were, in theory used to dealing with people exposed to trauma. I had cognitive behaviour therapy. That and the support of my wife got me better. I was able to go back out into the workforce.
What have you been up to?
Tanya and I moved to Hillsville and I rejoined the CFA as a volunteer, so...
Have you?
Turning out with Hillsville CFA.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's like having a physical injury and having a scar. The scar can be quite livid and large and visible for a long time, and then this slowly fades until it's just a little white line.
In the week after Black Saturday, Australia was coming to terms with the scale of the disaster. After fighting over 300 fires across Victoria, the CFA volunteers found themselves under scrutiny from a shell-shocked public.
While the smoke has barely cleared, the finger-pointing has begun.
We were part of what's called a strike team. And we were in the epicentre of what was arguably the most significant natural disaster in the history of Australia. When the fire front hit, we had to then make a decision to evacuate.
John Munday was a lieutenant in the Akron CFA. His brigade of volunteers was overwhelmed by the scale and intensity of the fires and forced to retreat to the Marysville Cricket Oval.
We had to make our way through the whole of the town to get back to there. There was fires all around us. The wind was that strong and trees were being blown down and blocking roads. We realised that to try and save anyone else other than the crew just wasn't going to be an option. There were people banging on the side of our tanker begging us to turn around and go back. By doing that, it would have sacrificed the crew. John Stevens, Gary Decline, Jamie Walker and myself. After Black Saturday, I ended up doing an awful lot of media. There was a lot of very negative people critical of the CFA and the volunteers. Why didn't you have a truck at my house on the day? How could you send the truck away to another area and just leave our town defenceless? The Flowerdale fire station was graffitied with horrible graffiti blaming the volunteers for what had happened, and it was so unfair because so many of the volunteers had given absolutely everything of themselves on that day, laid their lives on the line. This is the one where Mum cut out. Picture of the paper and she's got our John with the haunted eyes. It really brings back the memories of that first week. It was a very tough week and I just imploded. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just turned off my phone and shut down the laptop and went down and sat in the veggies. Gave them a water. Had a cry.
People who experience the trauma of disasters feel that really fundamental things they took for granted are destroyed: security, safety, loved ones. Many of them will say, I can't just go back to who I was before. I'm not the same.
Clinical psychologist Rob Gordon has been treating survivors of natural disasters for over 30 years. On Black Saturday, Dr. Gordon was under threat from bushfires himself. He avoided disaster when a wind change pushed the approaching firestorm away from his Yarra Glen home.
I saw it firsthand how neighbours and community members and people that we knew were profoundly affected. One of the very important factors is the relationship a person has to their place. In Indigenous cultures, there's a very strong cultural structure for connection to place, but many rural people have a very strong emotional and identity connection to their place. Our lives are built around meaning, and meaning is very personal. One person may say, I want to rebuild this because this is what will show me that I've survived.
I had to stay to do the right thing by Liz and Dalton, celebrating their life.
As Marysville began to rebuild, former CFA captain Glenn Fisk built a new home in the same place where his wife and son lost their lives.
I definitely feel they're with us. I think they've been with us for the whole journey, rebuilding here. I meet people for the first time, and when I tell them our story, I get a shocked reaction, and I've got to say to them, well, that's our story now. Losing Liz and Dalton is part of who we are today. It was during that early rebuild phase that Kerry and I started to see each other. Do you want to pop around and turn the hose on?
You know, if you wash her, we've got to take her out. My house burnt down along with everyone else's. The neighbours either side of us, though, their houses survived, which was good.
Kerry was someone I knew. We had kids at school together.
It was very hard times to go through all that rubble and try and find anything that was left.
Initially, I didn't want to admit that I wasn't coping. I was in a state of confusion, and it probably wasn't until Kerry and I got together that I felt a sense that there could be something afterwards.
Oh, is that what it feels like to get old?
We've always felt by talking about Liz and Dalton is how to keep them with us. That's Liz and Dalton at Sovereign Hill. He would have been 9 or 10 there, I suppose.
It's a great picture.
Yeah. My family. That was taken at Liz's niece's wedding. I think it was the November before the fires. We were all together, all dressed up in our finery to go off to the wedding.
I remember Liz talking about this day, asking about what she's going to wear. This one's a very happy day, where the keys to the house were handed over, and took a photo of Glenn and his kids opening the door for the first time.
That day represents a journey of 4.5 years to rebuild. Yeah, no, that was a very, very happy day.
Smiles all around.
After the fire, I had even more of a connection to the place because of what I'd been through and this property together. In the months afterwards, it was like, where do you start? And that's when I started to really get depressed.
There were times when I thought I'd never get through it. And every day that we weren't living in the house, I was crying. It was horrendous living in the caravans. Because the snakes had all died, we had so many mice. You just look down, there's 10 mice on the ground. when we were in the annex trying to eat our tea. Jason's cousin came over one day and she'd only been here for like 5 minutes and she just burst into tears. Jason's the sort of person that's got to be busy all the time, so he's got to be doing something.
And I was so used to always getting things done. It was just so hard for me even to get up because I knew that once I get up, I'll be looking at just an insurmountable amount of work in front of me.
With the entire nation's attention focused on the bushfire disaster, this is where you come if you have nothing. It's the place you come to if you want to try and begin to rebuild your life. Can I just get your name?
Ruth.
And what's your surname, Ruth?
Lynn.
What's it like being able to come here and,
Oh, it's fantastic. It's saving us a lot of money and helping us at this incredibly hard time. Someone actually said to me last night, this is worse than a horror movie, and my reply was, no one could write a script this bad. No one would even think to write a script this bad. Jason got really angry a couple of times and threw some of my stuff that I got at the relief centre in the dam. And, I mean, I'd already lost everything, and then to get new stuff and have him throw it in the dam, I wasn't happy.
And she said she was taking off to stay with someone else. She goes, I don't want to stay here anymore. I've had enough.
But then I realised, I suppose he was just overwhelmed with everything.
It wasn't until volunteers and people that came to help, it just sort of gave you a bit more energy. It made me get up. When people come, you get up.
It's the 3rd of September today and I'm up here to see the plaster's finished and the paint is here. Here we have the lounge dining room, the kitchen.
The other house was a Western Red Cedar home and it really suited the area. That's why I loved it. This house now is all solid brick. It's aluminium windows, a lot of concrete. It's more fireproof. But because the house was so different, it was like someone's house on our place.
Joshua's and that one's mine. Mum's is the one on the end.
It felt like moving into someone else's house, really. But you had a real appreciation for it after living in caravans and roughing it for so long. It was almost like staying in a luxury motel.
I always wanted a really good banjo and they cost a lot of money. So it's a banjo I built myself. Come Black Saturday, my sister was here to pick up my wife and kids. She asked me if I wanted her to take the instruments. I said, no, they'll be okay. She went and got them and put them in the car anyway. It was really fortunate because it would have just been ashes.
After 25 years living peacefully in Wandong, Steve Varga watched his house collapse around him as a violent firestorm engulfed his rural property. Steve built the home to be defendable against bushfires, but the ferocity of Black Saturday revealed the faults in his design.
The roof got red hot, which caused a smouldering combustion in the roof cavity. Smoke pouring into the house like a waterfall down through all of the cornicing. So I was making decisions at that point what I was going to do about the next house. This is a piece of aluminium which was melted during the Black Saturday's fires. It's part of the transmission casing of an XB Falcon. That's how hot it got. Waking up on Sunday was not a particularly good feeling. It's like being hungover, I think. Realising what had gone on the day before and wishing it hadn't. The landscape, just black sticks. There was white ash, and there was not a living thing as far as you could see. I decided to rebuild immediately. I had a renewed vigour to get on with life. I'd been sort of dawdling a bit before that, so I had a house to build and a whole lot of things to do and a whole lot of things to replace. The veranda shutters can be closed down over the windows. All helps. Stop you getting cooked. We have the cellar at the back, possibly a fire bunker. We have an escape hatch. There is a metal angle in the plaster, and then it's taped and plastered over it so the smoke won't be coming in there. Something I always do is fix what's broken, so I needed to fix this. It was an important part of my dealing with Black Saturday. If any fire was coming here again, I'd seriously like to stay, just to see how it all works out.
With survivors rebuilding their houses and their shattered lives, many relationships were put to the test. Divorce and separation became increasingly common, but the shared trauma of the bushfires also brought people together.
Alpacas! Hey! Alpacas! Yep, here they come.
When John Monday began dating his partner Kath,
Just open the gate up, love, and I'll...
they were both recently separated from their spouses.
We'd both been survivors of Black Saturday, and we'd had a brief talk about our experiences during that night, and we both had a lot of empathy for each other's situation.
Even though they were very different experiences, we understood that each other had been through this massive event.
I had a lovely little A-frame house. It was on fire, and within 15 minutes it was completely razed.
They're looking in pretty good nick.
My relationship broke down pretty badly after the fires, which a lot did.
We did do counselling and it just wasn't working. It's easy to divide all your house and contents when you don't have any. I met John and romance blossomed. Yeah.
Neither of our places was kind of ideal long term, so we decided to come over this way.
For Kath, it was really important that it wasn't in a high bushfire-prone area.
I can't even go into the bush on a hot day. It's like I'm not driving deep into the bush on a really hot day in the middle of summer.
In normal circumstances, I'd be happy to have a crack at defending this. It would be a grass fire that would affect us, and it's a lot easier to deal with than living in a heavily timbered forest environment, as Kath was in Kinglake before her house was destroyed.
During the chaos of evacuating, I only just got in the car and had the kids, you know, some clothes and some food, and just kind of bolted, and we were down the road and thought, oh my God, the cats.
This is Harry. He's a bit of a miracle cat. He survived the bushfire. They weren't sure if he was going to actually make it.
His eyes are gum shut. The burns around his face don't look that bad, but I think he's just burst the eyeball on the right side. But if he survived this long, he deserves a shot.
His paws were bandaged. They didn't know if he was going to be able to see. I think he can still see, but he's as deaf as a post. I think he's 88 in cat years.
You poor little bugger.
He's all right. He's okay. He's purring. Can you hear him purring?
He's a poor area.
He's purring.
He's doing well. He's got a nice life by the fire and warming his bones. He's a happy boy.
There were a lot of animals affected. A lot of people lost their animals and lost their pets.
Livestock and all our native animals, nothing survives in that sort of fire, in that sort of environment, because it just destroyed everything in its path.
It's estimated that over 1 million animals lost their lives on Black Saturday. Many fire-affected communities shared the scorched landscape with livestock and wildlife, traumatised by their loss of habitat.
We had people living in the premises, we had dogs and cats and animals and birds and all sorts of things living in the pub.
Stephen Phelan is the publican of the Flowerdale Hotel. When the bushfires destroyed most of the town, 7 locals fought through the night to help him save the pub. It became headquarters for a community desperate to get back on its feet.
On the Sunday, we realised we got through it. It looked like a bomb had gone off. People would be coming in quite distraught, obviously, and your job, not just mine personally, but all those that were here at the time in the bar and etc., were to console them in whatever practical way you could. And, you know, when they've lost family members or partners, it was very, very hard. Some people just couldn't deal with it. One of the best things was to at least give them a shower and put food in their stomach. The routine's all up the pole. I've had other people running my bar. I have no idea what's going on.
Oh my God, what have you done to his hair?
The hotel became a place to store provisions and a much-needed refuge for the people of Flowerdale. But the disruption almost ruined Stephen's business.
We do pull a few beers at the end of the day now, so there's a little bit of trade coming in at night. But that's a hard rock too, because you've been side by side with these people for so long that the last thing you want to do is charge them for a beer. They jumped along to a fellow by the name of Tim Constable, but he was one of the initial 7 to come to help save the hotel. Tim come running in, he'd just lost everything. He said, well, what do you need, mate? You know, I'm here to help. They're the things that are valuable. The people that stood beside you at the time, there's some good mateship come out of it.
They fed us, fed the army while they were up here. They fed the locals. The people here are absolutely #1. And this is probably the best feeding hole you'll ever find in your life.
People can be changed quite quickly overnight. I've learned it's important that community does keep together. It's a very good reason to keep going.
People who've had the worst things happen have the possibility of what we're now calling post-traumatic growth. I think it's the suffering and the struggle to make constructive, creative use of the suffering that actually leads to the post-traumatic growth. Most people who are severely affected eventually come to recognition that this is a watershed in their lives. Their lives cannot ever be the same again. That's the basis on which they can then start to ask the question, so what can I do for my life now? Can you imagine a life that's different from the one you've just had to leave?
I'm on a bunch of committees. I'm on the Strathewen Public Hall Association, Memorials Working Group, the Strathewen Wellness and Activities Groups. My life changed after Black Saturday because of the commitment I made to try and help our community. We were invited to meet the Queen because we'd been through the bushfire and she wanted to meet some of us to see how we were getting on now. And, you know, what could you say? Just better, thank you, ma'am.
Working on those committees really did help Mary stay connected to the community.
If that had have been chopped off because she lost Peter and that was sort of the end of Strathewen, I think that would have been really difficult for her to move on like she has. But she's a resilient girl.
We're having our potluck community dinner tonight. The dinners first started about a month after the fire went through. We just thought doing something like that was a way of sharing feelings and sharing ideas for the recovery.
Strathewen was really, really good with embracing everybody. It didn't matter where you came in on it, because everybody's story is so horrible, because, well, it's not a competition, because you don't want to win this one.
Was really a bruised community and pretty severely in some cases, because some people lost quite a few neighbours.
It was very difficult at first because we had some really grieving and sad people. I was pretty numb. Knowing the people that were coming did help, and we helped each other.
I lost husband, son and brother in the fire, so it decimated my family. And I won't do like my husband did and tip it upside down to take the lid off. You still got to live with it, and you miss them every day.
That day will never leave me. And the friends I've got are people I went through all that with. And they're still the friends I have, even now, 10 years later.
We won't get any if it goes out there.
1 minute we're crying like babies, the next minute we're laughing our heads off. I've been loved and cared for by many, many friends.
There was a real need in the community to try and identify positive things that we could do for the people that survived Black Saturday, things to bring a bit of laughter and a bit of joy back into our souls again. I've seen it firsthand, people that have suffered very serious medical problems, mental illness, post-traumatic stress disorder, issues with alcoholism, where relationships perhaps weren't working terribly well. This was like the death knell for them. Some really good people decided they would form a music group.
I rocked up one night and that's when I met John. It was somewhere to go and be creative and just sing my heart out. If I'd never walked the hard course, I wouldn't be here now. Still tempered in the fire.
We wanted to write a song about how Black Saturday had brought us together.
Sparks flying from the furnace.
And how we could actually rise above what had happened to us and move on with our lives. But it says if we hadn't had this fire, we wouldn't be together now, and that's a wonderful positive thing that's come out of this fire.
I am forever changed.
Out of the furnace of Black Saturday came the steel, the hardened steel that formed our resolve and our relationship.
The path that I travelled, watched it unravel, brought me here to you. We never would have met, fate was set, spark came to renew, spark came to renew.
I think probably prior to Black Saturday, I was a little bit naive. The fragility of life and the fine line between what happens and what might happen.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
We have to go on. You know, the ones that are left behind have to go on.
Before the fire, I was racing Speedway most weekends. This was my Speedway mini sprint, the old race car. They came through with bulldozers and excavators and cleaned the whole place up. I said, don't take that away. I want to keep that. Reminds me of the good times before the fire. Yeah. I thought I might never race Speedway again because everything was gone. But it was people that I raced Speedway with that just talk like, oh yeah, we're going to help you get another car and you'll be racing again soon.
As soon as I went racing again, I just felt so much better. It helped me deal with a lot of anxiety. After you've raced, it's just like everything, you just calm. You just calm, you know, because you're anxious before, a little bit afraid sometimes, but then afterwards you just calm.
Enter your final code. Will you please go to the dummy grid? Enter your final code. Thank you.
It took so long to try and become normal again and to try and get over the shock and the trauma. Everything in life was either before or after the fire. Before I wasn't philosophical, but now I do think a lot more deeply about things. And I think I'm a lot more sympathetic as well. The years after the fire were probably some of the best memories I've got in my life now, just because of what people did for us and the way people helped us.
Somebody hand knitted me 2 pairs of socks and posted them to me, and I'm wearing them today. Thank you, whoever needed these for me.
Second place, start 24, Hollywood Lynn.
Thank you. Mostly I want to thank my family for coming out with me tonight.
I'm happy that I've got through the last 10 years.
Couldn't get first, but second's pretty good, I suppose.
Just part of our being now that we've been through it. Our pre-Black Saturday life's gone, and now it's all new.
I go over to Marysville to lecture groups of senior CFA volunteers and staff about my Black Saturday experiences.
I still find it challenging to come back, even 10 years later. Just the whole hills are covered with these sort of spars of the dead trees that were burnt, and the skeletons, the grey, silver tombstones, I suppose. It's a very, very symbolic place. The town's done well, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still progressing.
The last 10 years, you know, it's really amazing, isn't it?
I tell people that I can squint and pretend if I really pretend that nothing happened.
Yes. Lovely to see some familiar faces here. Yeah, I've got a guy over here lurking around. It's Glenn Fisk. It's great to see your face, Glenn.
Thanks, John. We're not fragile, and we're more than willing to give our experiences. Don't be afraid to talk to us, because it's important for us to be able to talk to everybody as well to keep us going.
It was the fire you couldn't fight. Everything was on fire, wasn't it, Glenn?
And the street in front of us was 1.5 metres deep of embers. Like, it was just running down the street like a river.
When you get a situation like Black Saturday, which just broke all known parameters in terms of fire intensity and severity, you have to rewrite the Bible. And with climate change and, you know, the severity of the fire seasons apparently increasing, we have to always try to be ahead of the game.
Lessons learned, you know, like, this is what happened, this was the outcome, how can we fix it?
While it's hard for me, I know my story resonates with them. I don't think you can move forward unless you're prepared to accept objectively what has happened and learn lessons from it.
10 years have passed since the Black Saturday bushfires changed the lives of thousands of people, challenging their identities, relationships, and reasons for living. A decade of action and reflection as they incorporate the horror of the fires into the story of their lives.
This is Charlotte Elizabeth Pushy, her name is. Yep. She's my granddaughter. Hey, chickaboo. I hope she's got a bright future. Marysville's only going to grow and grow. Time passing is giving us time to digest what happened to us, to put it into perspective. It's part of the fabric of who we are.
All the names of those who passed in Strathewen are remembered in this space. Some had great losses. Friends of mine, 3 people in one family, 2 in another, a mix of our community. I don't think about life before the fires, really, because this is a new life for me now. And hopefully, from this disaster, a lot will be learned.
It's a huge part of my life, and it's made me exactly who I am today. I think those of us that perhaps go through experiences and survive have a legacy to try and help those who are going through experiences in the future.
There it is. It's not gold, it's a little, tiny little flattened shotgun pellet. I think I'm, in a lot of ways, a better person. I've learned probably more about empathy and about human suffering and about humans triumphing over adversity. I'm comfortable where I am.
I think I'm really clearer about what I do and don't want in my life. I'm not going to spend time with negative people who bring me down. Life's too short.
I can see my children grow up. I feel privileged for the second chance to actually see that.
I still try and live life as if we're not going to go through anything like this again, but it's always in the back of my mind. In the space of 1 hour, our lives changed forever. And, you know, I don't take anything for granted anymore.